Rose was the first child born free and easy to Jackson and Millicent Magruder. I recall most vividly the night she came into this world. Hailing rain, flashing lightning, and booming thunder pounded the door, inviting themselves in for the blessed event. Taking in her first breath of life, the infant did not cry out. Rather, she sat up and looked around. She took hold of that lightning, rolled it into a ball, and set it above her shoulder, while the thunder echoed out over the other. They say this just accentuated the fact that the child had the power of thunder and lightning coursing through her veins. "She's going to grow up to be good and strong, all right," Doc Holliday said. The child turned to the good doctor with a thoughtful glance and replied, "I reckon I will want to do more than that. Thank you very kindly."
So we're going to pause right here. We can already see what kind of character Rose is. So you're going to pull out your reading composition notebook, and we are going to jot down some notes about Thunder Rose. Please make sure that you are following along and writing in your composition notebook, because you're going to take a picture of it at the end and upload it. Let's see, here we have that taking in her first breath of life, the infant did not cry out. Rather, she sat up and looked around. She took hold of that lightning, rolled it into a ball, and set it above her shoulder, while the thunder echoed over and over the other. So we already know thunder is extremely loud. So if you have something right at your shoulder, right by your ear, that's extremely loud, that would usually hurt. So that lets us know that she's strong, she's brave. These are things that you could write in your notebook. Here I have my version of what is going to be my notebook. So I'm going to write that she is strong, brave. Notice I'm not writing complete sentences. It's okay if you don't. Going back to the text, notice that we have other characters, but we can tell who our main character is. So when we're talking about character interactions, we want to just focus on those main characters.
Recall. If you recall something, you tell about something you remember. Vividly. If you remember something vividly, you have a clear, detailed memory of it. Accentuated. If something is accentuated, it has attention drawn to it, shifting her gaze to the two loving lights shining on her, which were her ma and pa. She remarked, "Much obliged to you both for this chance to make my way in the world." Then she announced to no one in particular, "I am right partial to the name Rose." So much in love with this gift of their lives, her ma and pa hovered over her in watchful splendor. Overcome with that love, they lifted their voices in song, an old song and a melody so sweet and true, a lullaby passed down from the ages, echoing since the beginning of time. Partial. If you are partial to something, you prefer it more than other things. Splendor. The splendor of something is its great beauty or impressive appearance. "There is a music ringing so sweetly in my ears," the newborn exclaimed. "It's giving me a fortunate feeling, rumbling deep in the pit of me. I'll register it here at the bullseye set in the center of my heart, and see what I can do with it one day." Rose snored up plenty that first night, breathing on her own, rattling the rafters on the roof right along with the booming thunder. There was nothing quiet about her slumber. She seemed determined to be just as forceful as that storm. With the thunder and lightning keeping watch over her the rest of the night, her ma and pa just took to calling her Thunder Rose. The next morning, when the sun was high yellow in that billowy blue sky, Rose woke up hungry as a bear in spring, but not the least bit ornery. Minding her manners, she politely thanked her ma for the milk, but it was not enough to quench her hungry thirst. Rose preferred instead to drink her milk straight from the cow.
So we're going to go and add, since we have more information about Rose, we're going to go add to our notes. So I would add that she is extremely intelligent, especially based on the way that she speaks. She is well spoken. You can add more if you would like.
Her ma was right grateful to have such a resourceful child. No other newborn had the utter strength to lift a whole cow clear over her head and almost drink it dry. In a moment's time, Rose did, and quite daintily so. She was as pretty as a picture, had the sweetest disposition. But don't let yourself be misled. That child was full of lightning and thunder. Out on that paper bag brown, dusty, dry, wide open space, Rose often was found humming a sweet little tune as she did her chores. And true to her word, Rose did more than grow good and strong. The 2-year-old became quite curious about the pile of scrap iron lying next to the barn. Rose took a good-sized piece, stretched it here, bent and twisted it there. She constructed a thunderbolt as black as pitch to punctuate her name. She called it Coal. Wherever she went, Coal was always by her side. Noticing how skilled Rose was with the metal, her pa made sure there was an extra supply of it always around. At the age of 5, Rose did a commendable job of staking the fence without a bit of help. During her 8th and 9th years, Rose assembled some iron beams together with the woodblock she used to play with and constructed a building tall enough to scrape the sky, always humming as she worked. By the time she turned 12, Rose had perfected her metal bending practices. She formed delicately shaped alphabet letters to help the young ones learn to read. Resourceful. If you are resourceful, you are good at solving problems quickly. Disposition. Your disposition is the way you tend to act or feel. Commendable. If you do something commendable, you do it well and earn praise. For his birthday, Rose presented her pa with a branding iron, a circle with a big M-A-C for Magruder in the middle. Just in time, too, because a herd of quick-tempered longhorn steer was stampeding its way up from the Rio Grande. They were plowing a path straight toward her front door. Rose performed an eye-catching wonder, the likes of which was something to see. Running lightning fast toward the herd, using Coal for support, Rose vaulted into the air and landed on the back of the biggest lead steer like he was a merry-go-round pony. Grabbing a horn in each hand, Rose twisted that varmint to a complete halt. It was just enough to restrain that top bull and the rest of the herd.
So again, we're going to pause and we're going to jot down some notes about Rose's character based on some of the things that we've read about her growing up as a kid. For example, we see that she was curious and she was good with iron, creative,
But I believe what touched that critter's heart was when Rose began humming her little tune. That cantankerous ton of beef was restless no more. He became as playful as a kitten and even tried to purr. Rose named him Tater on account of that was his favorite vegetable. Hearing Rose's lullaby put that considerable creature to sleep was the sweetest thing I had witnessed in a long, long time. After the dust had settled, Ma and Pa counted 2,700 head of cattle, after they added in the 500 they already had. Using the scrap iron, Rose had to add a new section to the bullpen to hold them all. "What did you do to the wire, Rose?" Ma asked, surprised and pleased at her daughter's latest creation. "Oh, that," she said. "While I was staking the fence, Pa asked me to keep keep little Barbara J company. That little twisty pattern seemed to make the baby laugh, so I like to think of it as Barbara's wire. That was right clever of you to be so entertaining to the little one like that, her ma said. Rose just blushed. Over the years, that twisty wire caught on, and folks just called it barbed wire.
We see that she is sweet, and again, still very creative. So we can add sweet to our list of character traits or how we're describing Rose.
Rose and her pa spent the whole next day sorting the animals that had not been branded. One day soon, before the cold weather gets in, she told her pa, I'll have to get this herd up the Chisholm Trail and to market in Abilene. I suspect Tater is the right kind of horse for the long drive northward. On Rose's first trip to Abilene, while right outside of Caldwell, that irascible, full of outrage and ire outlaw Jesse Baines and his gang of desperados tried to rustle that herd away from Rose. Using the spare metal rods she always carried with her, Rose lassoed those hot-tempered hooligans up good and tight. She dropped them all off to jail, tied up in a nice, neat iron bow. It wasn't any trouble at all, she told Sheriff Weaver. Somebody had to put a stop to their thieving ways. But that wasn't the only thieving going on. The mighty sun was draining the moisture out of every living thing it touched. Even the rocks were crying out. Those clouds stood by and watched it all happen. They weren't even trying to be helpful. Why, the air had turned so dry and sour, time seemed to all but stand still. And there was not a drop of water in sight. Steer will not move without water. And that was making those bulls mad, real mad. And when a bull gets angry, it's like a disease that's catching, making the rest of the herd mad too. Tater was looking parched and mighty thirsty. I've got to do something about this, Rose declared. Stretching out several iron rods lasso fashion, then launching coal high in the air, Rose hoped she could get the heavens to yield forth. She caught hold of a mass of clouds and squeezed them hard, real hard, all the while humming her song. Gentle rain began to fall, but anyone looking could see there was not enough moisture to refresh 2 ants, let alone a herd of wild cows. Suddenly, a rotating column of air came whirling and swirling around, picking up everything in its path. It sneaked up on Rose. Whoa there, now just hold on a minute, Rose called out to the storm. Tater was helpless to do anything about that sort of wind. Those meddlesome clouds caused it. They didn't take kindly to someone telling them what to do, and they were set on creating a riotous rampage all on their own. Oh, this riled Rose so much, she became the only 2-legged tempest to walk the western plains. You don't know who you're fooling with, Rose called out to the storm. Her eyes flashed lightning. She bit down and gnashed thunder from her teeth. I don't know why anyone would want to mess with a pretty young woman who had the power of thunder and lightning coursing through her veins. But pity for them, the clouds did. Rose reached for her iron rod, but there was only one piece left. She did not know which way to turn. She knew coal alone was not enough to do the job right. Unarmed against her growing thirst and the might of the elements, Rose felt weighted down. Then that churning column split, and now there were 2. They were coming at her from opposite directions. Rose had some fast thinking to do. Never being one to bow down under pressure, she considered her options, for she was not sure how this would all come out in the end.
So let's think about how Rose has changed in the story so far. In the beginning, she was very sweet, and now we're starting to see a different side of her. So in your composition notebook, using at least 2 sentences, you're going to write how Rose has changed in the story.